Hello, everybody.
Hey, everyone.
Great to see you this morning. My name is Joe Sims, and you are looking at This Week with the Communist Party. I'm here with Scott Hiley and Marc Brodine. How you doing out there, Marc?
Doing just fine. A lot of snow here.
And Scott, you are in upstate New York. Any snow yet?
Well, we had a big storm earlier this season, but there's none right now. Just a few scraps left on the ground. It's warm, rainy, and gray outside.
Are you in Roslyn, Marc? Is that the name of the city?
Yes, it's a little town in the Cascade Mountains of Washington State.
Are there actually reindeer up there?
No, but there's elk and deer and many other kinds of animals.
Okay, you're a lucky guy. Well, we invited Marc to join us this morning to talk about a new book that he has written. It is called Green Strategy, A Path to Fundamental Transformation. And it's published by international publishers. Marc, you want to talk a little bit? What do you mean by a green strategy? What does that consist of?
Well, it's my contention that not only for this particular election season or going up to 2020, but for decades to come, green issues of environmental crises will need to be something that all of humanity addresses for considerable time to come. And to do that, we need a unifying strategy that understands how to link personal changes with social changes with fundamental economic changes, that we can't ultimately solve the problems just through technical means. We have to have a movement which imposes change on a resistant system. So I'm arguing for a broad-based environmental movement that builds alliances even more broadly with other progressive movements, organizations, and issues.
Is it kind of like a green-blue alliance? Or is that what
I think a green-blue alliance is the foundation of it, an alliance between environmental organizations and people who have environmental concerns with the labor movement and other workers. Workers on the job face all kinds of chemicals first, and then they also face them in the communities that they live in, like the rest of us. Right. So there's, I think, a powerful self-interest for workers and for unions to support a green agenda and a public works program that solves environmental problems while creating good jobs. And then, but the movement has to be broader than that. Issues of racial justice and income inequality and international peace also have to be part of this broad-based look at a movement, because otherwise none of those movements will have enough power to fundamentally change the system.
What about big business? Does big business have an interest in controlling the environment? Because it seems like those guys and women, but mainly guys, don't believe in climate change. I mean, they're like in denial or something.
Well, the first thing to understand is that denialism is a manufactured. It's not naturally occurring. The denialism is paid for. It doesn't mean that the oil company executives don't believe it. Exxon knew starting in the 1950s what climate change would result from their business model. And rather than change, they chose to continue to profit from business as usual.
Right.
It doesn't mean that they're really stupid. It just means they have financial reasons to try and make the rest of us be confused about change. They're following the model of the tobacco industry. Deny, 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 and create confusion and delay change as long as possible. But some big businesses are making changes now, and some industries, for example, the insurance industry, is being hit hard by the extreme weather. And that's true internationally. The biggest international insurance companies can tell you exactly how much we're already hurting because of it. But capitalism both creates the problems and is the main obstacle to some of the solutions we need. So ultimately, we need a fundamental transformation of our economy, of our society, and for international peace and international justice.
But let me ask you a question now.
Okay.
The other side of the equation, how do we deal with working class interests? Now, for example, in my hometown, fracking has replaced the steel industry. And the environmental movement for the last decade or so has put a ballot initiative on the ballot to end fracking. And the industry there and the unions there have consistently opposed that referendum because they say it will eliminate jobs. So how do we balance, job creation and environmental concerns? I mean, isn't that part of the problem?
That is part of the problem, and I don't want to say that such issues aren't difficult to resolve. But if they're only resolved with a vote on this number of jobs right now or losing those jobs right now, we can't build the unity necessary. What we need is a Green New Deal, which offers a massive public works jobs program to create a new energy economy, to fix the crumbling infrastructure of our country, and create more jobs and more good paying jobs in the process. And environmentalists have to address this. We can't join with the system to tell workers, you have to choose between surviving now or surviving later. Of course, people are going to choose surviving now if that's the only choice. But we need a movement that offers a better choice, where the work you do doesn't have to be destroying our collective future.
So you mentioned earlier that capitalism is both the cause of and the obstacle to solving this problem. Why is it an obstacle? Why does the outlook have to be anti-capitalist on the environmental question?
Well, first off, it doesn't have to be 1000% anti-capitalist. There are capitalists right now making money from building wind turbines and solar power, and we need those changes to happen right now. But to ultimately solve these problems, not just put a Band-Aid on cancer, we have to fundamentally transform the system. Capitalism is built on the idea that there can be an endless production of more and more commodities, and endless expansion of markets, and endless expansion of goods, and endless expansion of profits. And they want to do that in a world that is finite. There are limited resources in our world, and the way that we're directing some of those resources is harming the world for all of us. And doing that for the profit of a few is exactly the wrong way to go.
Does socialism do any better, Mark?
Huh?
Does socialism do any better? I mean, when the Soviet Union was in existence, and even in China, I don't know if it's still true that up until recently, China was one of the biggest, polluters on the planet. So does socialism really offer an alternative?
Well, what we need is not socialism. I think is a necessary but not sufficient condition. We need an environmentally informed socialism, one that takes advantage of the latest in environmental science. The record of socialist countries, China, the Soviet Union when it was in existence, is a mixed one. There are very many positive things. There's also many negative things. In the rush to industrialization, sometimes they took advantage of technology that was built for capitalist systems that had the assumptions of the capitalist system built into the machinery. How much it costs workers, how much it costs for natural resources, how much it costs to get rid of the waste. And the capitalist system says, we're not going to pay for the waste. That's what they call an externality. That's something that they dump on the whole society. And when socialism adopts that machinery, those assumptions are built into the machinery. So in the rush to industrialization, there have been problems with socialism. Socialism also has some great things to recommend it already. China is becoming the world powerhouse in building solar power and solar panels and wind turbines, and they're positioned to be to help the entire world make that energy transformation. So I don't mean to have rose-colored glasses on. There are real problems with some of the socialist countries and their approach to environment, and that is in the process of changing.
The Chinese, in fact, have developed this concept of an ecological civilization or something like that.
Yes, they are, and they're doing experiments with what they call agro-cities or eco-cities, where, for example, they're designed such that you don't have to drive. They have high-rises that have trees on the balconies and green rooftops and permeable surface for the roads and sidewalks. So they're doing some important experimentation.
So far we've looked at, like, how could socialism help save the planet and its people from climate change? I wonder if we could also flip that around a little bit. You mentioned that we need this huge, broad, radical movement to save ourselves and save the planet. Is that also the kind of movement that's going to help us overthrow capitalism? Can this kind of green strategy also be the strategy for, one of the things that pushes us toward socialism, toward the unity and power of the working class that we need?
Sounds like you're quoting from my book. Exactly what I argue for, both that the path to fundamental economic transformation has to go through the struggle for racial justice, for economic justice, and for environmental solutions. But also, environmental movements don't have to last very long before they run up against the system, before they run up against corporations that says that's our bailiwick and we get to make profits no matter what. They run up against capitalist-funded political systems that pass laws to prevent them or won't pass laws to improve things. So environmental movements are a new path to socialist consciousness that wasn't much of a factor decades ago, but I think will increasingly become a factor. You can't solve the problem without, we have to change our transportation systems, our industrial systems, our agricultural systems, and our political systems. And all of that requires a massive movement because the system doesn't want it to happen.
And it sounds like you're saying that the interests, fundamentally the interests of the planet and the interests of the immediate interests of the vast majority of its people kind of coincide, right? Like it's not, I think we're often presented with this vision of like, to save the earth, most of the residents of the earth have to give something up. But it sounds like you're suggesting that there's another.
Well, there absolutely is. There are the transformation of our energy economy, for example. Already there are more workers employed in the solar industry than there are in the coal industry. So
Wow.
There are jobs and good paying jobs which can be created with a massive public works program geared to both creating jobs, to fixing the infrastructure, and to addressing our environmental needs and the climate change that's already with us. I do want to say another argument I make in my book is that it's not just about climate change. It's about pollution. It's about water stress. It's about soil degradation. These are all linked. The world is a giant web, and all people and all of nature are connected in this web. And when there's a tear in one part of it, it affects the whole web. So we have to find a way to address all of these concerns. And we have to do it in a way that creates possibilities for the future. Part of what the movement has to do is create hope. If you just read the worst predictions, it's easy to give up. And what I argue is a movement can make it better. And we would need a movement to make it better. And we need fundamental transformation to reach for fundamental solutions.
Well, if you want to find out more about building such a movement, we encourage you to get Marc's book. It's called Green Strategy. Can you see it there?
Yes.
Path to a Fundamental Transformation. You can get it from international publishers. Just look up, and it's $14.95, $15.
$14.99 actually.
$14.99. You can't beat that price. And pretty soon it will be available as an ebook also, I think. Well, Marc, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
We will be back next week at 10:30 Eastern, 9:30 Central, and 7:30 Central for This Week with the Communist Party. Thanks again, Marc. See you, Scott. Hope everybody has a great week. You guys take care. Bye-bye. That does it.
Okay, that was a little different.
All right.
Yeah, they never end up being exactly the same.
That's good. That's not a bad thing.
Okay. I think I figured out how to do this without turning off the entire program. That was fun. All right, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Thank you, Marc. See you later.
Bye.